So we're recording now. I'll hand over to Dr. Irina Tal, a colleague here at the School of Computing, cybersecurity expert, and has done some interesting work on privacy. There you go.
Thank you, Rob, for the introduction. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this talk that is entitled Heightened Attitudes to Privacy During COVID-19. Basically, I'm going to present some findings that we had in the context of a project called Privat, a project that was financed by Science Foundation Ireland under a COVID-19 grant and was led by Lero and Adapt. The main components of the project were an online privacy survey, a social media sentiment analysis on public Twitter data and the comments gathered during the survey, and the social legal analysis. I'm going to focus today on the two components, the online privacy survey and the social media sentiment analysis. Basically, these were the methods that we used to analyze the attitudes towards privacy in COVID-19 in the Republic of Ireland. The privacy survey had basically two phases. The pilot, it had a limited release, so we obtained 289 full responses, and then we released a final survey where we had 1,012 participants. We released it we used various media outlets like Irish Times, Irish Tech News, social media, etc. So you use various ways to distribute the survey. Obviously, it was just online due to the circumstances. This ran at the end of 2020. So when we designed the privacy survey, we basically wanted to answer a couple of questions. What is the general attitude towards privacy in COVID-19 times? Has this attitude changed compared to normal circumstances with a view to help control the crisis? Do privacy concerns prevent Irish people from using technologies? And we took the particular case of COVID tracker app, technologies that may help in managing the crisis. Are people in Ireland concerned about the long-term influence of these technologies beyond the health crisis on their privacy? So these were the questions that we basically aimed to answer in our privacy survey. Now, the reason why we ran it in two stages, so we had a pilot and then a kind of national release of the survey, it was because we wanted to kind of refine the final survey. We had the involvement of different stakeholders, including HSC, Irish Irish Council of Civil Liberties, privacy experts, Data Protection Rights Ireland. So we had lots of stakeholders involved, and we took lots of external advice in addition to the team that was involved on the project. So I'm going to focus on the results of the big survey, to say like that, on the national survey. It's important though to mention that the findings are pretty much the same. So we had pretty much the same results. The results were comparable between the pilot and this survey that had 1,012 participants. A little bit about the demographics. It was quite well balanced in terms of gender. Most of the participants came from Dublin County, with the non-Dublin participants being distributing among 31 other counties. Quite a well-educated segment of population answered our survey, with more than 30% owning a master's degree, 22 bachelor degree, and the third largest group representing was the one that finished secondary school. In terms of age, the best represented segment was above 24. We had less responses.
Irene, I think you're stuck there, frozen.
I'll just give Irina a second. Hopefully it's a transitory internet problem she has.
So as I was saying, the best representative age segment was above 24 years, less people replied, less people over 65 responded to our survey. That was kind of expected due to the fact that the survey was only online. So we used Alan Weston's approach to classify the participants in terms of privacy attitude. Alan Weston is a well-known name in privacy research. He performed more than 30 years of research, and this classification is highly used. So we have three groups: pro-privacy, and this group is the most protective of their privacy. 29% subscribe to this group. Ambivalent, protective of their privacy, but they make the decision based on pros and cons of sharing their data, very much aware about the protections put in place. Dismissive, this is the least protective group of their privacy. So our participants, 54%, the majority were ambivalent, and then only 17% were dismissive of their privacy. Now, in terms of changes in attitude towards privacy during COVID-19, the survey shows a change in attitude. Respondents are more inclined to share their mobile data during COVID-19 time to help with the crisis, including the people that are pro-privacy, so the people that are more protective, the most protective of their privacy. You can see a huge increase there. Pro-privacy during COVID-19 replied that 53% are willing to share their data as compared to 7% in normal circumstances. So overall, there is an increase from 14% willing to share their data in normal circumstances to 61% willing to share the data in COVID-19 times. This change is driven by the people willingness to help with the crisis. Another interesting aspect that was revealed in our survey was related to the privacy policy. And so in general, we know, and lots of studies show that people are not reading privacy policies. This subscribes to the kind of the privacy paradox problem, where even if people say they are concerned about their privacy, their behavior doesn't show this. So if they say they are concerned, but they don't read their privacy policies. So the survey, for instance, revealed that around 20% of the respondents are quite conscious about reading the privacy policies, but as compared to privacy policies in general, 52% stated that they have read the COVID tracker app policy. So a huge increase there. Also, we had the question for them in the survey: to what extent you agree with the following statement? I expressed my consent to the use of the app in an informed way, and 66% stated that they expressed their consent in an informed way. So our conclusion was that in COVID-19 time, there is a shift in attitude. The respondents to the survey seem to be more willing to share their data in the interest of saving lives, but they also seem to increase their awareness about privacy, and this is reflected in their behavior as well. Another question that we wanted to answer was: the privacy concern prevent Irish people from using technologies, in particular the COVID tracker app, that may help in managing the crisis? So 62% of the respondents are using the COVID tracker app. Pro-privacy people, obviously, it was as expected the lowest adoption of the application. So this basically suggested and led to the conclusion that privacy concerns prevent the adoption of tracking technology, and this was reflected also in other questions that we had in the survey. People put among the first place the privacy concern, or the concern that it will be used as a surveillance technology among the main factor that prevents the adoption of COVID tracker app. Are people in Ireland concerned about the long-term influence of these technologies on their privacy? 30% of the respondents fear that the application will be used as a surveillance tool beyond the scope of COVID-19, just as I was mentioning before. 28% of the respondents have privacy concern in relation to the app, and 42% that use the app or are using the app are concerned about what happens with their information once they quit using the application, as shown in this graph here. As I was saying, we also perform a sentiment analysis on tweet data, but also on the data that was collected during the survey, on the feedback that we receive in the survey. In general, the sentiment towards COVID tracker app it's negative, so 54%, roughly 55% negative sentiment toward the COVID tracker app. This is what the tweet showed, and a similar finding on the survey comments. So again, the predominant sentiment is towards COVID tracker app is negative, with 51%. I selected some of the comments from from the survey. You can see the privacy concerns listed there. The fight against COVID-19 is important, but the line between fighting COVID-19 and privacy is very thin, could easily be exploited and profited of beyond the cause of fighting COVID-19. But also another component that relates to trust and transparency. I only use the app because I read the DPIA and was reassured by it. So the people, and this is just one comment, but this seemed to be kind of a generalized opinion. The people appreciated the transparency from the HC side, and also they showed an increased trust in the HC and government as compared to the private players involved in the app. Another thing that influenced the usage of the app that goes beyond the privacy itself, it was the efficacy. So the people wanted really more information about the impact, how impactful was this app, how much it helped in controlling the spread of COVID-19. So the main findings of the two analyses that we did, this is the sentiment analysis, both analysis on tweets and survey data unveiled a predominantly negative sentiment toward the COVID tracker app. And the main causes for this sentiment are privacy concern, first place, but also efficacy of lack of trust in the private players mainly. And also initially there were some issues with the battery, so they were draining the battery of the mobile. Many people actually quit using the application, but that issue was fixed after that. So the conclusions, the main conclusions after running the survey and doing the analysis on the tweet data, but also on the survey data, was that people in Ireland are quite protective of their privacy, with many being classified as fundamentalist or pro-privacy, and the majority being privacy pragmatist or ambivalent. I'm apologizing for this. This is a kind of a change. There's no terminology. Fundamentalist basically the term used by the initial term used by Westin. It's important though to say that the findings are similar to other privacy studies out there. They use the Westin classification. People in Ireland that are similar to other studies, for instance, that were done with the predominance in US. There is a change in attitude towards privacy during COVID-19. So there is an increased willingness to share their data to the COVID tracker app, but they do so in an informed manner, with the majority reading the app's privacy policy. This willingness, this change in attitude is basically driven by the life-saving potential of sharing their data. And also I said the privacy awareness seems to have increased during these times. And it's also reflected in the behavior of people. As I was mentioning about the privacy paradox, people are concerned about privacy, but then their behavior don't show this. During this time, actually, their behavior kind of reflected their concern. Privacy concerns influenced the adoption of the COVID tracker app. It was the main factor This was the finding, the main finding both in the survey and in the sentiment analysis. And other factors relate to trust, the efficacy of the app, but also understanding the role of the app. In general, people appreciated the transparency from the HSC side. And many people decided to use the app due to this trust in HSC, due to their transparency in communication. But this was a bit shaken in terms of later on the communication in relation to the efficacy of the application. The people in general expected more data, more concrete data in relation to how efficient was this application in controlling the spread of the virus, because in general, most of the people perceived it as a sacrifice that they did in terms of privacy by adopting the tracker app. And I just wanted to share a nice, at the end, a nice quote from one of the people involved, one of our stakeholders involved in the project, and I'm going to leave it like this. Rob?
Thanks very much. Great. So huge amount of data collected from a lot of people over time there, and you've dug into some of the highlights. You talked about the stakeholder involvement, and you've given an example of IAPP there at the end. Do you want to talk a little bit more about the different stakeholders that were involved and maybe their different attitudes or opinions?
Yes, I was just trying to retrieve a kind of a full list. I think one of the general feeling from the stakeholder, it was that this project was, well received. It was needed from their perspective. So we had the HSC. They were involved, and I think they were kind of interested in how to communicate with the public. We had the Future of Privacy Forum involved. We had Honor Survey Ireland. Irish Council for Civil Liberties, again, were heavily involved, and they really appreciated this initiative. They expressed in various interventions, let's say, like this, their concern about this tracker app, and especially that there was a study at some point that was kind of saying that, was kind of demonstrating that the things mentioned in DPIA are not really entirely true. The Central Statistics Office, Data Protection Commission of Ireland, Digital Rights Ireland, and Facebook Everyson. So I'm not going to go on exactly.
Sure. But I'm just saying, so in addition to the raw data, you had those attitudes coming in. And so one of the things that you highlighted was the importance of the DPIA.
Yeah.
And both in terms of increasing transparency and building trust.
Yes.
So, but I downloaded that document and it's like 100 pages long or something. Do you think?
Still, people seem to have read it. I think this is what. Sorry for interrupting you there. I think this is what is impressive, because I did previously quite some research in privacy policy, for instance, and. You know yourself, the amount of people that are reading these policies, it's insignificant. And this research goes beyond in the bigger, under a bigger umbrella that I was talking about, the privacy paradox, where people, they say they are concerned about their privacy, but they don't really behave to reflect this concern. From various reasons, like in terms of not reading privacy policy or the DPIA, it's simply, they just don't want, they always complain they are too long, it's too much not technical, but legal language that they don't maybe understand all the time. So there are various complaints. This is why I think it's so impressive that they actually, the majority, you can say, they went to read the privacy policy and even the DPIA.
So maybe just having that process in place helps build trust, even if everyone doesn't actually read.
Yeah.
I meant to say as well, if anyone from the audience has questions, please use the Q&A tool in Zoom. If you just mouse over, you'll see it down there towards the middle. I was also, so you found that Irish attitudes to privacy conform to the kind of norms from other surveys.
Yeah.
Was that surprising?
Not really for us. It was a good finding in the sense that it was a confirmation that the classification we chose, it's good, in terms of it's kind of good to classify the people on the basis of their privacy attitude. So we took it as a confirmation on choosing that classification.
Yeah. What I was thinking was that maybe that sometimes we think that culturally, a lot of these surveys would have been carried out in the US and that it's a very different makeup than what we have here in Ireland. But actually, your finding was the overlap was pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good. And also we found when we did this comparison, I don't know now all the studies, but Western classification was used in Europe as well. And, findings are kind of matching in the European segment as well.
Yeah. So obviously most people are in the middle, but what you're seeing is that there's more people care strongly about privacy than strongly don't care about it. It was about double, wasn't it?
Yes.
So as a society, even though most people are in the middle and it's a big number, there is this push towards privacy, which I think is interesting. Okay.
Indeed, there is a push towards privacy. But it was I think it was interesting to see how the attitude towards privacy changed in the pandemic, because it did change. People were more willing to share their data. And I think the main factor there was the willingness to save lives. They shared because they thought it will be helpful in controlling the crisis. And also, I didn't put these findings here, but you'd be surprised to find out that even we had the question about mandatory, if this app should be made mandatory, and even from the pro-privacy people, there were some that say that yes, it should be made mandatory.
Great. So I have a question from the audience here saying that they read the DPIA for the tracker as well and that it was gold standard. But do you have any thoughts on how we can get other such apps up to that standard? DPIA.
I mean, other apps under the standards? Sorry.
Well, the DPIA created for the COVID tracker app to a very high standard.
Yep.
How can we make it so that all DPIAs are to that high standard?
Yeah, I think it's more a matter of policy here. I think it goes more in the law side of things. So I think it will take people from this side, law and policy, that could better answer this question.
I mean, I think having that example out there is going to be really useful.
That's true, and maybe the way that people reacted well to it, because trust it is shown here. It's important. It's very important. So, and it showed that the DPI it contributed to this, to an increase in the trust, right? So, yeah, maybe it will influence the other apps.
Yeah, and your finding as well was that risk assessment at the start is not enough. People want feedback at the end to say
Yes.
why they risked what they risked.
Yes, because as I said, the majority perceived the adoption of the app as a sacrifice of their privacy.
Yeah, so
and they wanted to see that it mattered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So maybe that's something that we should move forward in the process, you know, that we should make it so that not only do you have to do the DPIA, but that you have to do some sort of after action report as well for verification. Okay. So I have another question here asking, are there any indications about how COVID might change future attitudes to privacy and technology? Yeah,
I'm not sure if indication, but I believe that there is, with all these talks about privacy and with this tracking technology coming into place, I think people were more interested about privacy. The privacy awareness increased, and I'm quite sure the privacy awareness will increase, or at least, you know, and also there will be some change in behavior. As I was saying, the people won't only be concerned about privacy, but they are going to, this concern will also be reflected in the behavior as well. This is at least this is what the study seems to indicate. Obviously, we don't have enough proof to kind of say that there's a finding. It may be more a speculation or indication, like it's here.
Yeah, and so maybe it'll be really interesting when we do the follow-on survey later through the AI on My Life program to try and get another iteration of the survey done and see if there's changes that are embedded and ideas for ways that you want to change the survey for that.
Any ideas on how to change? Yeah, I think again we will focus on the privacy policies and the questions in relation to the privacy policies to see if there is increase or not on people reading in general, because we already have the data showing how many people are reading in general now privacy policies. That change or not, if there is increase or not. And also it will be interesting to see, but this is not really related to the future attitudes to privacy, but it will be interesting just to follow up to see if people trust is still at the same level after, you know, in relation to that efficacy factor. You know, are they happy with the way the data was communicated? Because I think there was lots of frustration at some point around the efficacy. Even in our survey data, there were a lot of comments. It was a lot of hype in the beginning, but we don't see data showing how it contributed. And also it will be interesting to see how many dropped, because we know there was a drop in the use of application due to user experience and battery, which was mainly influenced by the battery issue. But it will be also interesting to see if there was a drop caused by the lack of communication from the HSE and government in terms of efficacy.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting as well in the survey, and it wasn't in the questions necessarily, but how much focus the response is had on the app, on the COVID app, when in fact there was a huge amount of additional privacy concerns that were happening in terms of the level of recording of personal information that was going on, sensitive health data that was being transferred around, perhaps in a less way?
Yes, because like whenever you went to a restaurant or any kind of place, you have to, leave lots of personal information. But I think it may be funny. It's just, I think the people perceive differently those situations as compared to an app.
Yeah. Well, I suppose as yesterday's talk on nudging mentioned, that potentially the app is doing a lot more, is measuring a lot more
Exactly.
than what's obvious.
Yes, yes. And, they don't know how many people will have access to the end of their data as compared to, when you leave the data to a restaurant, it's a limited number of people that potentially will have access to that.
Yeah.
But I don't think people are really asking about, okay, what will happen with that? Will they destroy those? When they will destroy those records, etc.
Yeah, I know in the UK there was a lot of concern about that the legislation basically allowed the NHS to keep those records forever. At one point, at least. Okay, one more question is about consent. You produced quite interesting evidence about that the majority, the vast majority really of users felt that they had been able to make informed consent decisions about the app. Isn't that right?
I mean, it was based on their feedback. I mean, it's still subjective. They stated that yes, they feel they were informed. But if you look at, there is a difference between the how many people say that they read the privacy policies, for instance, and more say that they feel they were informed than they read the privacy policy. Yes, I think it's 10%, almost 10 more, actually 10% different.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure why they feel they were, maybe, I don't know, they read all kind of things around it. Yeah, it's a subjective evaluation.
Yeah.
You can have, usually when you run this kind of research around the privacy policy, you would have a knowledge-based question, actually, where you check their understanding on the policy. So we don't have that kind of evidence. This is purely on their feedback, on their subjective feedback.
And do you think it would be appropriate to add those sort of questions to one of these wide-scale public surveys? The knowledge.
I think that it will be interesting, but I don't know how you control it, not for them not to go and find information.
Yeah.
Because it will be unsupervised, the process, right? So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, one last call for any questions there in the Q&A tool. But other than that, it's been a very interesting discussion. Irina, thanks very much.
Thank you for the invitation. I also think that just to add something about the COVID tracker app there, and it was a lot of information in media as well, and lots of praise coming from different people about because this thing just reminds me now how people were say that they are informed when they approve. Where there's a lot of analysis on the privacy consideration, that the app was designed with privacy consideration in mind, okay? And there's a good trade-off between days of sharing, privacy, and also the fact that the application in Ireland was basically the foundation for instance, the application in US, and I think even UK, they adopted it after they have the flop with their initial application that was highly criticized. So I think those are, again, factors that considered the trust, that contributed to the trust in application. There was lots of emphasis about, even in the comments, some comments were saying, oh, the app was well designed with the privacy consideration in mind. It will be interesting. Obviously, there was no details, but how did they reach to that conclusion? And I guess it's around this lots of public, lots of media around this subject, and the way, the fact that it was adopted by other countries, including US, and I think I'm quite sure UK after their initial app. So, yep.
Yeah. No, it's interesting that that having the broad context of public debate actually helps inform consent, as opposed to just narrowly what's written in the statement on the app.
Yep.
Okay, so thanks very much. We'll leave it at that.